it's funny when you pray for patience, God gives you opportunities to be patient. When you pray for wisdom, God gives you opportunities to make decisions, to either be wise or to not be wise. And when you decide that you're going to do a series based on relationships, God gives you chances to really test out the things that you're talking about. God knows it's been a hell of a weekend, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to air dirty laundry. Sid's watching, so she will certainly keep me honest here. But let's just say I can't even begin to give a good adjective to this word, mistake. It was huge. It was tremendous. It was, and I know you're sitting out there going, oh no, John, you're a good guy. It's probably not that big a deal. Yeah, it was a huge deal. I'm not cheating on my wife. I wasn't doing anything like that. It was just like, it was a decision it was not smart financially. It was a dumb financial decision. I made the mistake, and it truly, and I'm telling you, and I don't want any sympathy. I don't deserve it. It was a dumb mistake. Pulled the trigger on it, and then like 10 minutes later, I was like, oh crap. It's a dumb mistake. So we've been tense this weekend, and we're on the other side of it, so we're getting better. But it's funny, when you pray for patience, you get opportunities to test your patience. When you pray for wisdom and how to deal with relationships, God gives you opportunities to work on those thoughts and theories and prove them to be true or false. So I can honestly say the 5 things we're going to talk about this week with Google Fix My Relationship. I'm pretty much I'm living this, and honestly, yeah, it's the truth. So Google is great for a lot of things. Google is great as a search engine. Google is amazing for finding out all these things that you have no idea that you didn't know that you needed to learn. But Google's not necessarily always the best thing for fixing problems like relationship problems. So what we're going to talk about this next week is 5 ways that you can handle relationships a little bit better. It's not going to insulate you from ever having problems. It's not going to insulate you from ever having problems with your relationships, but what it's going to do is give you some tools that you can use so that you can handle those tough times a little bit better. And today we're talking about don't bottle up your emotions. And I can talk about this because this is kind of what I do, more so than I like to admit. I think a lot of people do this because I have done it historically, because once you say something, it's really hard to put that back in the bottle if you say the wrong thing. But suppressing intense feelings can also carry a heavy emotional toil, and that's the God's honest truth. When you get it all out, when you finally get all your emotions out in a productive, constructive way, it could be very, very healthy, and it could be better for your relationship to move forward. So just imagine it's Thanksgiving dinner and your crazy uncle has you cornered describing your rigid political views and offering as many incendiary comments as he can about either the week's news or, in a lot of people's case, the election results from last year. So part of you is tempted to let loose with a tirade of your own, just land on them with both feet. But you don't want to ruin the holiday or upset your family, so you decide to keep the peace by biting your tongue and holding on to those emotions and bottling them down and putting the plug on it and not worrying about it. But suppressing those emotions is not a good long-term strategy. Among other things, it's marked negative effects on your emotional and physical health, but it's certainly a thing where it can explode all over people, maybe at the wrong time. It's not always advisable. But it's certain situations. At a party with in-laws, dealing with irate customer at work, interacting with difficult coworkers, it may not always be advisable or in your best interest to express yourself fully, but at some point you have to get those emotions out. You don't have to make the decision between social graces and keeping your sanity. While you need to make a distinction between feeling your feelings and expressing them, psychologist Gary Hicks said this in his book, The Big Leap, Conquer Your Hidden Fear and Take Life to the Next Level, there are ways to go about it that doesn't make you feel inauthentic and send stress responses skyrocketing. So that's kind of the base for what we're talking about not bottling it up. So there's certain challenges that we have to overcome. Uncertainty. If you're taken off guard by an unpleasant encounter at a social setting, you may have no idea how to respond, or you may be unsure if the situation calls for you to express yourself or hold back. Okay, so you have to be very judicious on when you express your emotions and when you need to be silent for a short time and then have a conversation with the person privately at another time. You don't want to feel phony. You may feel like you're lacking integrity or inauthentic if you don't speak your truth. And I love how the author actually says the word "speak your truth," something that Oprah said this past Golden Globes. I thought it was interesting. Your truth is becoming much more of an accepted figure of speech, but it's also being accepted as, your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth. And that's another way of saying three sides to every problem. There's your side, your truth, my side, my truth, and the truth. Okay, so somewhere in there. If you're worried about feeling phony, you may feel a moral obligation to express your feelings. All right, and then there is the ready to blow effect. That's when you've bottled it up a little too long, and you explode out all over everybody. And this could be problematic, because if you're one of these people that holds it in until you explode, you could potentially explode at the wrong time on the wrong people for the wrong reason, and then you have way more damage control than you really were expecting, and that could be a problem. So let's look at some ways to cope with it. All right, so here's for the note-taking crowd. This is the first thing I would write: be honest. Be honest with yourself. It's a good idea to express your feelings all the time? No, but in some situations you can tell yourself the truth. If you must temper your reaction for someone else, acknowledge internally that's what you're doing. When you hide your emotional responses from yourself, it throws off your integrity. As a musician, you learn this phrase. When you're playing on a track for another artist, like in a recording session, or you're playing live somewhere, like for a church or maybe you're auditioning somewhere, you play a mind game. You can play more, because you can play all this stuff on the drums and you're all over the place. It's so simple to you because you've been playing it for years, but all you really need is just a simple groove. You don't need all this extra stuff and all the cymbals and drums here. You don't need all the extra stuff. You just need to play a simple groove. And it's the same thing here. Be honest with yourself. If you know you need to get the emotions out, get them out, but do that at an appropriate time, in the appropriate place. And tell yourself that. I'm not exploding right now because I'm going to have this conversation soon with this person at the appropriate time. So you don't want to feel inauthentic in not only feeling your emotions, but holding in those emotions. Second thing is name them. Name your emotions. It sounds easy, but a lot of the times we don't know what we're feeling. For example, we'll often react with anger when you really don't know what to say to the other person. And I'm guilty of that big time. When in reality, you're not feeling anger, you're afraid, or you're sad, or you're confused or frustrated. When you're having a strong emotional reaction, try to identify with true feelings and react on what's prompting them, instead of unleashing the wrong emotion or saying the wrong thing on the wrong person. The next coping mechanism is to talk it out in advance. If you know you're heading into an emotionally charged situation, talk about what you expect will happen with someone else in advance. Be very, 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 very careful about who you're talking to at this moment in advance, and make sure that you're not gossiping and just, bitching about somebody, that you're really having a conversation saying, look, I'm getting ready to go into this really tough conversation with input person here, and this is what I plan on saying. I'm not sure how they're going to react. What am I missing here? And just get it all out. But don't use that as a way to complain about some person, and don't use that as a way to just gin up some, sympathy that makes you feel justified in saying something in a hurtful way, when in reality, you may be in the wrong to some degree, and you just really need to have an honest conversation with somebody who hurt your feelings, or there's a hurt or somewhere. You just need to be cautious of that. Describe all the emotions you think might get triggered. That preemptive conversation may help you stay calm when the moment arrives. All right. Next thing, be a neutral observer. We're going to talk about emotions and being patient and being calm in another day. But when faced with a difference of opinion, we'll say it like that, look at the situation as an opportunity to learn more about the other person. Pretend you're a sociologist. Actually put the sociologist hat on and look at the other person very neutrally and calmly, and try to understand the other species that you're looking at, the other person that you're looking at. If you do something inarguable, if you just listen and ask questions, the other person can't really argue with you. If you're asking questions feels like a stretch when you really disagree with someone, try being neutral and observing phrases like, wow, you have strong feelings about that. Tell me a little bit more. Why do you feel that way? Start having those conversations, and maybe you can actually diffuse the argument and then just have a real honest conversation about it. Political views right now are powder kegs, and I know the conversation I had on the front end of it may trigger some people who are watching this video who don't know me well enough to understand that I really don't care what their opinion is if they're just going to flame me in a comment. If you want to have a conversation with me, I would love to talk to you about it, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe Kim Jong-un and his sister are the two greatest people on the planet. I don't know. I'm not thinking so, but you never know. And lastly, shift gears. If you're really stuck, take 3 deep breaths and change your body position. When you change your body position, that keeps you from being frozen in that fight or flight mode. When you're driving down the road and you come up on a deer and it gets caught in the headlights, that deer in the headlights look, it's fight or flight. Their reaction is always run away unless they get caught in the headlights and then they're frozen, they're stuck. Don't be that deer. Likewise, rhythmic breathing quiets the body's stress response. Again, I pulled that from a psychologist. That's not just me talking. Try to make each breath 4 or 5 seconds long on the inhale and 4 or 5 seconds long on the exhale, and then just keep breathing. The biggest thing when you're in a conflict is to make sure that you are taking those breaths. And I'm not sure I did this really well last night. I don't think I did this well this weekend. But when you get into a situation, one person says something, the other person instantly says something else. Take a couple of breaths in there. Let the moment sit for a second and process through the right thing to say. Nobody likes being in an emotionally charged conversation, an argument, whatever you want to call it. But bottling up your emotions can only hurt you in the long run. Ultimately, you're the one who's going to feel the damage from, pushing those emotions deep down. So make sure that you are having the conversation. You're getting your emotions, you're getting your thoughts out, you're getting your feelings out. But do it in a way that is helpful to your relationship, because that's ultimately what we're working on. We're not going to fix the relationship. You're going to make the relationship better. That's the ultimate play here. You want to draw closer to the other person so that you have a stronger, better, longer lasting relationship. That's the end goal. I hope this helps. If you have questions, I would like to field that. Leave me a comment there. If you want to find me over on the blog, johncdonahue.com. If you're looking for the show notes for today's coffee break, you can always find them over at patreon.com/John C. Donahue. That's part of the benefits of being an Inner Circle member.